One of my clients who runs a SaaS business, when we first started working together, his webinar show-up rate was sitting at around 5%. 5%! He was spending good money on Facebook ads, he had an amazing offer, but people weren't showing up. So I want to explain how we turn it around, and the solution wasn't what he expected. See, when I looked at his setup, the problem was that he was using the wrong webinar format for what he was actually trying to achieve. They picked the webinar format that suits them between live or evergreen, and they just keep running with it. But these are two completely different beasts here, and each one is built for a completely different job. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to pick the right one. I'll walk you through both formats, and at the end, I'll tell you exactly what happened to the SaaS business. Hi, my name is Terence Tam. I'm the founder of Radical Marketing, a specialist webinar funnel marketing agency. So over the last 10 years, we've generated over 2 million event leads for coaches, course creators, education businesses, and SaaS businesses across the US, Australia, Asia, and Europe. So yeah, we've seen a lot of webinars. In this video, I'm going to share two ideas with you. Idea one is when a full-length webinar is the right tool, and idea two is when our format of a recorded webinar, which we call the sprint webinar, is actually the better play. And then I'll give you two simple questions to ask yourself so you can figure out which one suits your business right now. So let's get into it. So here's the thing, right? Most people treat webinar like it's one thing, like a webinar is a webinar, but sometimes it's not. A full-length live webinar and a recorded webinar are completely different marketing tools. They have different goals, different formats, and completely different audiences. And I know you're probably thinking, Terence, a webinar is a webinar. How different can they really be? Here's what nobody really talks about, because the question isn't what type of webinar would suit my product. The question is, what job does my webinar need to do? So let's break down both types of webinars. The full-length webinar is a live webinar that runs anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes. And here's when it's the right marketing tool. Use a full-length webinar when your audience needs a significant amount of credibility or education before they say yes. I'll give you a real example. My client, Michael, teaches property investing, specifically how to buy properties using no money down. Now, think about that for a second. No money down sounds incredible, but it also sounds like something like a get-rich-quick scheme, right? People hear that and immediately think, okay, so what's the catch here? So Michael can't just say, hey, if you're interested to invest in properties without any money, book a call. That's not going to work. People will think he's a scammer. He really needs to actually show people how the strategy works. He needs to walk them through the system, give them proof that it's real, and build enough trust that they genuinely believe it is possible to buy property with no money down. And only then they will take action. And that's exactly what the live webinar does for him. He runs a full session. He walks his audience through the whole approach. He shows them case studies, builds credibility, and then he makes the offer. The result, his business grew 2.5 times in the first 3 years of working with us. Now, here's something that surprises most people. You've probably heard that webinars only work for warm audiences, but that's not always true. When your offer needs credibility or education, and most coaching, investment, and professional development offers do, a full-length webinar can convert cold leads very effectively. The key is whether your audience genuinely needs that education before they act. So one important thing to consider is the price range of your offer. In our experience, if you're going to pitch at the webinar itself, your offer needs to be between $300 to $3,000 if you want to close them directly from the webinar. Now, if you're selling a high-ticket offer, like say $5,000 and above, you can still use a full-length webinar. But your objective shifts. Instead of closing them straight from the webinar, you use the webinar to get them on a one-on-one call. So the idea number 2 is where it gets really interesting. The sprint webinar is something we have developed here at Radical Marketing, and it's a completely different beast. A sprint webinar is around 15 to 20 minutes long, and it runs 24/7. And even if you don't want to speak, we can create an AI avatar to speak for you. The goal of the sprint webinar is not necessarily to close the sale. It can be to book an appointment. In the case of a SaaS company like the one I mentioned at the start, it's possible to make a trial offer, a low-ticket subscription on the webinar. So what's a sprint webinar? I'm talking about a short, focused, automated presentation that does one thing well. It gets qualified prospects to raise their hand and say, yes, I want to have a conversation with you. And the numbers are strong. Our sprint webinars have delivered up to 84% show-up rates, and close to 10% of the viewers take the next step. So for every 100 people who watch it, say around 10 people are booking a one-on-one call. That's a consistent lead flow running around the clock without you going live week after week and draining yourself. And that's not even the most interesting part. For that SaaS company, once we implemented the sprint webinar, his show-up rate went from 5% to 28.3%. I know it's still not great, but the cost per trial for his software dropped from over $200 to around $40. And he actually had hundreds of people taking up the trial. The offer and the audience was the same. We literally just changed the format and what we were asking them to do. Then there's another client in the healing space. We helped them to get over 80% show-up rates for the webinar and a 10% appointment rate to high ticket offer. So when do you use the sprint webinar? Use it when your goal is to get people on the phone. Use it when you have a high ticket offer that needs a real conversation to close. And use it when you want a consistent automated lead flow that does not depend on you going live every week. You can also use it for trials or low ticket upfront offers in general that are less than $100 that works super effectively. And use it when your audience already understands their problem. They know they need help. They just need to know that you have the right product or you're the right person to talk to before they commit to the next step. Now, why does short work? You're probably thinking, is 15 to 20 minutes really enough to convince someone to book a call? The data says yes, not just from our own experience, but also HubSpot found that the average webinar attendance has dropped from 41 minutes to 24 minutes. Wistia found that videos under 20 minutes retain 60% or more of their viewers. Sam Evans, who built a coaching business to multiple 8 figures, found that a 20-minute format got 37 more appointment bookings than his longer webinar. And Gong.io found 30 to 40% higher show-up rates when businesses use shorter explaining formats rather than long ones. All right, so how do you figure out which format to use? 2 questions. Question 1 is, what do you want people to do immediately after watching? If the answer is buy my program or course directly, you want a full-length webinar. If the answer is to book a call with me or my team or sign up for my free trial, maybe a sprint webinar is a better play. So question 2 is, how much credibility or education does your audience need before they'll take action? If your offer is complex, unfamiliar, and needs explaining before people will trust it, a full-length webinar might be better. And if your audience already knows they have a problem and is actively looking for someone to solve it, maybe a sprint webinar may work. And here's what I see most businesses do wrong. They pick their format based on what other people in their niche are doing or what some marketing guru told them a few years back, not based on what their own audiences actually needs at this point in their journey. So the right question is always, what job does my webinar need to do right now? Answer that honestly, and the format choice becomes clear. If you need time to move your audience through educating them and you need to generate interaction and excitement to close higher ticket offers, your live webinar may be the best fit. It just needs to know that your low ticket offer is the right one, or booking a one-on-one call makes sense. A sprint webinar might be the answer. And right now, we work with 2 clients each month on our sprint webinar service. We build it, we script it, we set it up, we drive traffic to the thing for you. And if you want to find out whether that's the right fit for your business, there's a link somewhere in the description below. Fill out a short form and we'll take a look at the setup. We'll tell you honestly if a sprint webinar makes sense or a full-length webinar is actually what you need. So there's no hard sell, just a friendly conversation. And if you want more on how to build webinar funnels that generate consistent revenue, hit subscribe. It really does help more people to find this content and it's good karma. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next episode.